Hey guys, we're in the Shulker Smelter today, and we're going to talk performance, troubleshooting, and I'm going to do a block-by-block tutorial on minecart placement. Alright, so let's talk limitations and performance. First thing you need to know when using this is that it needs to be fed a minimum of 8 items. If you give it fewer than 8 items, there's a good chance it won't detect them, and nothing will happen, and you'll just clog the whole thing up. So minimum of 8 items, maximum of sideways 8, infinite. There's no, whatever will fit in the chest is your upper limit. Second thing is partial shulkers are allowed, so you can feed it 10 shulkers that are this full, or some full, some not full, as long as the first one has at least 8. Third note, mixed shulkers are allowed, so you can do half gold, half iron, whatever combination of different items you want. The caveat being that they have to be full stacks. So you can't do something like this where you have 28 raw gold and then 14 steak. Every item in the shulker needs to be a full stack, and that just ensures that everything is packed back up properly when sent to the return chest. In terms of speed, this thing processes a full shulker every 1 minute and 30 seconds. The caveat being the first shulker takes a little bit longer at 2 minutes. And everything's returned in full shulkers. So if you feed 7 or 8 partial shulkers, you're going to get back the minimum number of full shulkers that fits all the items that you fed it. And from a lag standpoint, 95% of the hoppers in this build are locked when it's not in use. So obviously a lot of these get unlocked while it's in use and could cause a bit of lag, although I've never had any issues with it. But if that's something you're worried about, 95% of the hoppers in this build are locked when not in use. In terms of minecart placement, there are 2 main areas that trip people up. The stack under the shulker unloader and the stack under the shulker loader. Each has 5 minecarts in total, 2 positioned over 4 hoppers each, 2 positioned above them, and then a final hopper at the top. And then we have the same thing here. You can't see the bottom 2 because they're inside these target blocks, but we have 2 hopper minecarts down there, 2 on top of them, and then 1 on top. This is a mock-up of that unloading piece over there. So we would, when we're done, have target blocks in all these locations with a minecart floating in the center. And then we'll have our 2 other minecarts on top of it here, and then the final minecart right here. So we'll start with the bottom minecarts. And I've placed some pistons here that are going to do some rail pushing for us, and then these pistons are going to do the block pushing. All of these will be torn out when we're done. But we'll start by putting the first minecart there, breaking the rail. And we have an iron bar here and an iron bar here, and this piston will push the 2 together, creating a half block and putting our minecart in the direct center of these 2 hoppers. And now we don't need that guy anymore, so we can break it. We don't need that guy. And then we're going to put an iron bar here, and now when we push this guy, that iron bar is going to marry up with that iron bar to put our minecart in the direct center of all 4 hoppers. And we can now break both of those rails and all of that. Repeat that process over here, and you'll have 2 minecarts centered on 4 hoppers each. Just like that. And next we're going to throw target blocks above here and push them down into the minecarts. And now we have our platform for the next 2 minecarts that'll go on top of this. But in order to do that, we need to raise this block up to make room for those minecarts to be pushed sort of in the center here. And we'll put a piston above it so that we can eventually push it back down. Load both of these with minecarts. And you want to build a piston with a trapdoor right next to that. You can see this is inside the block that's just next to the minecart. And we'll repeat that over here. Piston with trapdoor like that. We'll get rid of these rails. Activate both of these. And now these are nudged slightly into this inner block here. We'll push this back down. And finally, we will put those rails back. These are activator rails. And last step, we're going to put a temporary block here, activator rail here, and the final activator rail in the middle, then destroy the 2 temporary pieces. And our final minecart goes there, and that is it. That's your whole assembly there. The final step will be to put your target blocks down, and in the case of the lower assembly, you can use glass blocks because they don't need to be target blocks. just like this. We now have our target blocks around those hopper minecarts so that those hoppers can still be locked. Here's where I'm saying you can use glass blocks. I haven't done it on this build, but I have in my main Let's Play world. Actually, I've done it over here, just not over here. It's optional, but I like the glass blocks because it makes it less likely that you're going to accidentally bump that minecart out of place. And finally, let's talk Shulker Smelter troubleshooting. So the first thing you need to make sure to do is force fill your fuel. The way fuel distribution works with this build is the low fuel indication comes off the first hopper. If the second hopper is low, which I'll force right here, we'll see that the minecart is not dispatched to refill it. So all of these hoppers along here could be out of fuel and the system won't detect it. In the course of operation, that doesn't matter because this furnace is the first to be loaded, so this hopper is the first to be drained. So we only need to take a read off of this hopper. But when you've built it for the first time, once that first hopper is full, it's going to stop refueling itself. So I'm leaving this hopper empty here to simulate what this might look like when you're building it. And what we need to do is simulate this hopper being empty in order to trick the system into refueling itself. So there's three things we need to do to force fuel the system. The first is activate the powered rail lines that handle the distribution. So we'll put a redstone block here that forces this open, and now we have power along those rails. Second is we need to unlock the hoppers that the fuel is kept in, and we do that by breaking this redstone block right here. And now that whole row, this whole side, both banks, are unlocked. And the third is to break this redstone block here. This is underneath the hopper that the fuel comes from. We're going to break out that block and get rid of this comparator. And that will trick the system into thinking this hopper is empty when it's really full. And now we've got this minecart running along distributing the fuel. And if we check out our block here, we're now getting fuel in here. So you'll want to leave this running until the entire system is completely full. And once every single hopper is completely full, which you'll know is done when you're not losing any fuel out of this chest anymore. Once that's done, you reverse this process. So put the comparator back, put the redstone block back, lock the lower level, and the minecart should be back in its bay, and we can break this, and we're back to square one. You'll need to do that with all 4 banks. So we have a chest there that feeds this bank, a chest there that feeds this bank, and then the same on the opposite side, chest there that feeds this bank, and a chest there that feeds this bank. And these also serve as your refuel points, so when you're low on fuel, this is where you need to refuel the system. And that's a good segue to troubleshooting step number 2, which is if you're out of fuel, it won't work anymore. So check your fuel. It needs to be full. Troubleshooting step number 3, flush your hoppers. If you've built this in survival, there's a good chance that some of your construction blocks accidentally fell down into these hoppers, and because they spend a lot of time locked, they can be stuck in there without your knowledge, and then when you start the furnace, 1 or 2 of the furnaces will get skipped and throw the whole timing off. So you'll wind up with partial shulkers returned or other weird issues. So best way to do that is to unlock all of the hoppers along the top row here, which you do by breaking out these redstone torches on either side of the very ends of each bank, and then just checking the furnaces below to see if any of them activated. In fact, if they're non-combustible blocks, you'll actually need to click into each furnace, and what you might find is this, for example. Oh, actually, terracotta can be cooked. You'll find something like this. In your furnaces. So you'll just want to check all of your furnaces. So we'll break that out. You'd come down here, go check all your furnaces now that the hoppers have been unlocked and had an opportunity to flush. And then you'll put that torch back, come over here, flush this one, give it a few minutes, go check all your furnaces. And then once you've checked all your furnaces, put that torch back and repeat the process around every bank until you're completely flushed. And for good measure, you may choose to flush the bottom hoppers as well, the return line, and you do that just by breaking that block there. And now all those items can be flushed out, and you'll check your droppers here to see if any items wound up in them, and then return the block down here so that everything's locked back up. I'm not going to do a full block-by-block tutorial because I'm almost 100% sure this doesn't work in Bedrock, and if you're on Java, you're better off using the Lightmatica schematic and placing it in your world. And also the tutorial video would be like 3 hours long. And that's it. Everything you need to know to keep this thing running. But the final and most important step is to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.